Hey, Grace Church. We wanted to do a short video just to recognize that, hey, this virus has hit every aspect of life for sure. I've got Ben Akers with me, the lovely Ben Akers, and the elderly but yet still ruggedly handsome Neal Hands. And I'll be your host. My name is Marshall Gipe, one of your elders, and we're just wanting to have a little bit of a lighthearted but also serious conversation in that the virus has affected every aspect of life. And we're in a little bit of a unique season for, well, the entire planet, because right now there is not an organized sport being played anywhere on the globe that's sanctioned by any kind of organization. Probably some other sports that we're not going to talk about right now that may be happening, but the reality is there's nothing happening. Well, Ben and Neal, if you didn't know it or not, are kind of big sports fans. And so we thought it would be interesting to see what are sports fans doing now during this season when there is nothing to watch. There is no way for the competitive itch to be scratched. There's no way for all of that to come back out, and that thing in them that just needs to be scratched. So Ben and Neal, share with me, what is it, in all seriousness, what is it like to be a sports fan? What are you doing in place of watching sports? Help us out.
Yeah, well, for me at least, this has been the worst for me because I'm from Kentucky. So obviously I'm a Toronto Raptors fan and a St. Louis Blues hockey fan. So it makes sense. But last year, both my teams won the championship. And this year they were both doing really well, and then the season just gets cut. So I didn't realize how much of that it actually took of my time, like watching the game, setting aside time, hey, I can't meet with you. I can't do anything with you all because I got a Blues game I got to watch. But, a couple of things that has been a lot different in using my time is one, if it's just by myself at home, I have a basketball hoop out in my driveway, and that's where I play my NBA championship against.
How are you doing? Are you losing or are you winning in those? Is that
the series is 3-2? I'm winning.
good?
So those guys, my imagination is pretty good. But yeah, so I've been doing, just kind of shooting and trying to get outside a little bit more. But other than that, we've been doing devotionals through Elevate, and so been getting those out and kind of emphasizing that we now have so much time to do things that we said we had no time to do. And being in the Word was always one of those ones that people say are an excuse. Oh, I don't have time to do that. I've been so busy. Well, guess what? You're not busy anymore. And so we're trying to figure out best ways to serve our students and serve our souls as well, even as a family. And so it's been great.
Cool. Neal?
Well, for me, I think that first of all, it was really a crushing blow when things got canceled just as the tournaments for basketball, college basketball, was getting ready to fire up. And what was even worse in my eyes, since I work with high school athletes as a basketball coach, was there were girls going to the state tournament. I heard a story that one of the girls' teams showed up at the tournament for their game that day, and they were told when they got there that there would be no game. And the boys were at the regional level. Well, those are once in a lifetime events for those kids, and to see those taken away and not have a chance to do those is pretty sad in my book. And then this spring cancellation of sports, if for those of you who don't know, I have a connection with Newton High School, and we have really a pretty good track team this year. And baseball team's always pretty good. But I was kind of close with a couple of kids on the track team, and one of them placed in 3 events last year at the state as a junior. And I was looking forward to him getting to participate this year as a senior and maybe be able to bring home a championship in one of those 3 areas, or maybe all 3, because he's that good. And it just really killed me to see that he didn't get a chance to do that. And I didn't have his phone number, but I texted his sister and told her to tell him that I was thinking about him, and it was felt pretty helpless not to be able to do something for him. But I just wanted him to know that I was sad about it and hoped that he maybe had a chance to continue on in college or something. And his sister gave him my number, and he texted me back, and he is going to go to college and try to participate in the track program. So he has something in the future, but it's nothing like getting robbed of your senior year when you're really pretty good at something. You know, it's hard for a kid that's just average, but when you're really good and you know you got a chance at doing something special that not very many people get to do, then that's what happens. Now it makes me feel really sad for him. As far as what I'm doing personally, I'm a Cleveland Browns fan. To Danny's, I know he doesn't appreciate that very much, but this is our biggest time of the year. And our event is still going to take place. Tomorrow night is the NFL draft, and they're going to do it remotely, and they've tried it already, and I guess it's kind of been a mess. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But I'm going to tune into that.
So you're going to get a little bit of a fix here. You got a little bit of a fix that you can get, at least with that. And why is for non-sports fan? I'm a non-sports fan. I'm raising an athlete. My son plays college baseball, but I only got into sports because he is into them. I was going to hunt, fish, and trap, and then he liked everything with a ball, and so our attention shifted. So I really am not by nature a fan. But why is the draft for a non-sports fan the highlight of the Cleveland Browns year?
Well, the Browns, when I was a kid, they were always really good, and they would win championships, and they were always competitive. Well, recently they've been pretty poor. So the best thing that we could hope for is that they would get good players in the draft. Okay. So we're kind of looking for, we feel like I'm the eternal optimist when it comes to the Browns. I always think they're going to be better than what they are. But they do have a pretty good group of players, I think. And they have just a couple of spots that they need to pick up some good players. And I'm hoping in this draft they get some good young players that will carry them into maybe I'll get to be like Ben, and my team might get into the playoffs. His two teams won the championships. I'm not sure the Browns are ready for a championship, but just get to the playoffs would be great.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. You know, you mentioned a couple things, Neal, and even Ben. You know, it's easy for us right now to just kind of deny people of their feelings and not put ourselves in their shoes. I mean, I said I'm not a fan. I am wearing I believe, New Orleans Pelicans basketball shirt. For the record, the staff of Greenville Grace Church forced me to pick an NBA team. I found out that there was a Pelicans basketball team, and if you've ever fished in the ocean, you do not like pelicans. And so my way of liking the Pelicans was my way of being kind of the anti-fan. So yes, this is all I have, and so it's just kind of my way of solidarity, which is in my world.
Intimidating.
I'm sorry?
Went with the most intimidating team.
Yes, no one wants to be chased by a pelican. Yes, that's exactly right. So, but as a non-fan, I'm not. However, you mentioned the athlete from Newton, Neal, that lost an opportunity. And I think I knew who you're talking about, had a tremendous chance to really do some great things at the state level as a senior, because he was doing it as a sophomore and junior.
Right.
Rhett, our son, plays baseball for the University of Cumberland. They were, when the season got shut down officially, they were like 23-2 as a record. They were ranked 7th in the country in all of Division I NAIA baseball, and were moving up. They were 11th the week before and had moved up to 7th and hoping for top 5 the next week. Like, they were rolling toward a championship, and it's gone. Like overnight, all of that work that he had been working toward for years suddenly just, yes, got put on hold. We know that now, but in the moment, those feelings are real. What do you guys say to this? Ben, I'll let you kind of come at it from the student's perspective, and Neal from the parent's perspective. Like, what do you say to the student that's feeling those things? Because it's not kind of us to look back at them and say, well, you shouldn't just feel that way. They know that it shouldn't be that important to them, but yet it kind of is. You know what it's like, Ben, to go in and have a crowd and play and see some success. And if suddenly that's just jerked away from you, you may even know that feeling. I don't know all of your story. And then Neal, even from the parent perspective of how do you help parents who even like me to kind of shepherd their child through, I know it's just a game, but the reality is it did really impact their life. And it's, the game is still impacting you guys' life. When you talk about your teams, you call them yours, you light up, it's kind of a whole body response to it. So Ben, from the student's perspective.
Well, for me, when I played college basketball, I was fortunate enough to play all 4 years. And at the end of my 4th year, after my last game, it felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. However, it also felt like, I got stripped from something that I really enjoyed. And I know seniors now that aren't able to play in the spring and that we're going to have, major impacts in the sports that they were doing. That is not a fun spot to be. However, I can encourage students who are younger than obviously these seniors that, just because you have the sport right now does not mean you're going to have it tomorrow. To be all in. And that's one thing that it drives into not just the sport, but it actually kind of goes over into your life, how you operate at certain things. Even for Neal, I'm sure basketball has such an impact on him that some of the ways that he leads even his home could be, attributed to sports. But, even for those students who can't do those things, it's going to be good for them to reflect on where they have and where they've been and be able to kind of have the impact on the younger generation and just kind of coach them into that. So just because you can't do it anymore doesn't mean that you can't still have an impact on something else and enjoy that as well.
Yeah, it's you still have your platform of being able to interact with people and be a positive influence and a role model. People are always looking up to you. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Neal, tell me how to feel as a dad whose son looked at me with vacant eyes and said, I think I just lost my entire season. I've finally gotten to a good school. They're great at baseball. I'm a weekend starter and I can't play anymore. Like, how do you help parents not roll their eyes as non-sports fan and go, are you serious? And the reality is he is serious. It's a big thing.
Well, first of all, I would say it's just like in other times of sadness or disappointment, it's okay to grieve a little bit.
Yeah.
It's all right to feel bad about it. I think sports are great. I guess a great example of life in itself, because things that happen in sports are going to happen in your life throughout your whole lifetime. And you know what? And I don't mean to be a downer here, but I lost my mom like in a heartbeat, in a flash. I didn't expect her to pass away, and she all of a sudden just collapsed and died. Well, suddenly something very, very valuable to me was taken away. And I did grieve over that tremendously. And I felt really bad because I hadn't been out to see her for a few days. And now I never had a chance to see her again. Well, sports and losing your season and things, it's not as impactful as that. But you know what? Something's been taken away. And it's okay to feel bad about it, and it's okay to grieve about it. But the other thing you have to keep in mind is, you know what? You cannot control it. Just like you cannot control things in your life, you had no control over this season or anything. And I'll kind of go back to, I thought Ben had some really good thoughts there about when he finished up his sports. There are other ways, even afterwards. You can always think back and say, boy, if it would have just worked out this way, I bet this is the way it would have turned out or whatever. But, and it's good to look back on memories and things, but I think you always need to be looking forward, because we can't control that past. And we need to look forward, and how are we going to continue on with our love of the game, or our love of the sport that we're in. And for me, to be honest, as a high school student, I came from a family, I had an older brother that played a lot of sports, but actually through high school, I didn't play sports. I worked. And I spent my whole adult life as a teacher telling kids, you know what, I love this game, and I let it go. I let it get past me, and I never got a chance. I didn't take that opportunity. Work, you'll do that the rest of your life. Get involved, play. So, and probably because of that and the love that I had for the game, that's how I started getting into coaching. And I learned, I always played. I just didn't play in an organized team. And I learned a lot and felt like I did an adequate job in the coaching that I've done. So, and my main focus was not all about the sport. For me, like I said, sports is just like life. And what's most important in life, I hoped it came out in my coaching as well. And that's Christ. So I'll stop with that.
No, that's great. Good stuff. Thank you so much for sharing. And it's, I think you both hit on something that's pretty cool in that, we read in scripture that life is a season, and there are seasons within life, and, we know that everything is a season. And I think that I really appreciate what you're saying of, look around, and if you're not, Neal, from your perspective of, I let the game get by me, I didn't play. And so if you've got a chance and you want to play, step out and go for it. Like, we have the future ahead of us. It's sure easy to look back and say, what if? But if we're not impacted and changed by this and move forward, now is the time to commit. Now, and we've all gotten this pause button pushed for 6 weeks. And suddenly my 21-year-old son that was at school doing one thing is now in my living room every day. And at first that was a unique change. And now it's a tremendous blessing. Like, we're bonding and connecting much more, and we were able to do that. And we want to carry that forward. So the season has not been lost. In some ways, we've gained so much more as a family because of the loss. And I think what you said, it's so true that sports are such a good mirror for life. But I appreciate you guys and your input. At first, it's just really fun to serve alongside you guys, and for taking a few minutes and talking about it. Just something as crazy as sports, but what a great way to learn. And I hope that the church finds this beneficial. Ben, would you close us in prayer, just praying for us and that we have the right perspective, and just in gratitude for the unique season we're in. Pray for us, brother.
Absolutely. Dear Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for today. Thank you even for the opportunity to stay home and be able to either be with family or kind of have a ripple in our life. It's so easy to get wrapped up in the mundane that we get stuck in this track and this rut, and this is a great change of pace, no matter how you look at it. I want to pray for the brothers here with me, Marshall and Neal. We've all have some area in our life where, sports have had an impact, are currently having an impact in our lives. And while those things are great things that, like Neal said, the one thing that we should be radiating is Christ. And I pray that even through this period of time where we can't watch sports and the only thing that might be on are reruns, that, we can look at the past, but we can also rest and look forward to the future and you being able to proclaim the gospel to a world that needs to hear it. I also want to lift up every senior. This time must be rough. I can't imagine what it must be like for them not to be able to have the normalcy as everybody else that has walked before them, or any of the sports, graduation, schooling, and they don't know what the future is going to hold. But I pray that you give them rest, and I pray that you give the parents wisdom on how to interact with their students, with others in their families, and with grace and with love. And finally, God, I just want to lift up Darke County. We really don't know what this virus is going to do. They say it's going to peak in May, but as far as we know, something could change drastically, and we could be in here for a lot longer than we anticipated. But I pray that even through that period of time that we can rely on you, rest in your word, and remember and keep our minds set on the gospel. As all these things in your name, amen.
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 I'm said too, just kind of in closing too, I'm a little bit like you, Neal. It's interesting to hear a little bit more of your story. I kind of assumed that you had just always played competitively because you've coached, and to hear you say you didn't, you're kind of learned the game from a different angle. I'm a little bit in the same way. I didn't play. I have an incredible interest specifically in the game of baseball because my son plays it. And so I kind of follow his coach. The coach of the University of Cumberland's name is Brad Shelton. He's a godly Christian man and a great role model for my son. So I'm super thankful for him to be playing for him. He said something that I think that we can even take away from this, that I want to encourage even Grace, those of you from Grace Church that are watching and hearing this, or regardless of where you are. He said something in a podcast that he did that caught my ear. And he said that practice is for coaches and the games are for players. And, that thought's been kind of rolling around in my head even since this virus hit. I can speak for all three of us, we have been so blessed by hearing and seeing the reality of how the people of Grace Church and the church, the people of the church globally, are loving one another and doing things that they wouldn't have done if we could be gathering and doing the normal rhythms. Like it feels like we're kind of in game time right now, even as a church, where it's so encouraging and gratifying and warming even to my soul to hear and see the stories of people loving on their neighbor and calling and checking in, and just checking in because they love each other. Like, that's the reality of what the church should be doing. And I think we're kind of in that game time, and I just hope we don't lose that moving forward. And so as a church, we wanted to encourage you. We wanted to have a little fun with each other, but we also just wanted to say we love you, and we're so grateful for the opportunity to be able to just walk alongside you, to shepherd you, and just follow the chief shepherd, Jesus Christ. This is a season, so let's hunker down. If you got any questions, don't be afraid to contact the church office. We love you guys, and we'll see you around.